Welcome to this week's episode of Drive the Bid, the automotive podcast brought to you by AutoHunter.com, your destination for online collector car auctions. Hosted by Diego Rosenberg and Derek Shiekhi. Drive the Bid starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Drive the Bid video podcast brought to you by AutoHunter.com. I'm Derek. I'm joined by my co-host Diego, and we have a very special guest this week. We are joined by the Collector Car Network's marketing manager, Jordan Muscarella. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no problem. So for those of you out there who are just tuning in or listening to Drive the Bid for the first time, this is how it typically goes. So we start the show with a car industry news item. This week we'll be covering the long-awaited 2025 Toyota 4Runner. And this week we're going to share some of our car memes that we've created and that we found online. And then after that, we'll get into our main topic. We have a different one each week. This week, we're going over cars that we think could start an entirely new generation of automotive enthusiasts. And then, of course, we end each episode by going over our favorite cars that are live now and available for auction on AutoHunter.com. And speaking of AutoHunter.com, if you're not familiar with them, I'm going to hand it over to Diego to let you know a little more about that site.
Okay, I'm going to read a little script, and I'm going to use my best radio voice. If you are looking for a great price on a vehicle and love the auction style of buying or selling a car, check out AutoHunter.com. It's our 7-day online auction platform with new cars listed every single day. Head over to find the vehicle that's not only right for you, but at the right price. AutoHunter.com.
All right.
Nice.
Great. I thought you were going to...
How was that, boss?
That was great. That was great.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to do a Gentleman's Club DJ voice or something.
I try to make it legit.
Nice. All right. So, like I said, we're going to start off with car industry news. So, finally, it seems like it has been ages. Toyota has finally released information on the all-new 4Runner.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been, believe it or not, 15 years. Yeah.
It's like they're an American manufacturer.
Well, see, I always identified these really long lifespans with like Toyota trucks and this in particular, and then the Nissan Frontier. But, let's see.
The thing with the Nissan, to me, I always had the impression, I could be wrong, that it just wasn't competitive, and they just kept on building it because it sold enough, and maybe all the cost was already sunk.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense.
And in some ways, it was the same with the 4Runner to a point, and it kept on selling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and just for crazy prices, too.
Sure.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at the last generation Ram 1500, as far as last I checked, it's been a while, but, they went from the DS platform, which they phased out, I think, with the 2019 model year. And then they went to the DT, but they continued to build the outgoing model as the classic. And, I thought, oh, well, they're just going to flush the pipes, do it for a year or two. But last I checked, they were still making those.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
because it's still making money.
Yeah, I guess so. You can get a lower price of entry, and, sometimes people just like the older model.
Sure.
But there's definitely some companies out there that get a lot of mileage out of their vehicles. But this is finally new. You got the line, some of the lineup there. That's just a small sampling because they have 9 different trim levels that they've at least announced at launch. I don't know if they're all going to be available from the top, but
is it like AX and BX and CX and DX and EX and FX and GX and HX? Is that how many letters?
Oh gosh.
It's definitely a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Those are the trim levels, right?
no, but there are a lot. So, and then they've got like layers for some of them. So like they have TRD off-road, TRD off-road premium. Now the two big ones, the two big additions are the Trail Hunter, which is their sort of in-house overlanding trim level. Sure. So you get like rock sliders, you get 33-inch tires, you get a snorkel, a light bar, things like that. We might have a picture of that one.
That snorkel
in
looks
the
pretty
deck.
cool. I saw that this morning.
Ah, nuts. I don't know if we have it in the deck. Okay, so, and of course the TRD Pro there. But anyway, yeah, they have a snorkel, and it's pretty stylish, like kind of streamlined and everything. And then at the top of the range, and I'm thinking this is it. They have, well, that might be a limited, but the limited used to be the top of the line. Now they have a new flagship level, which is the Platinum, which puts us more in line with other Toyota vehicles because that's usually the top of the line for them. So in that, you get things like heated second row seats, a tow tech package, a head-up display, and black accents on the outside.
So what's the standard, the SR5?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is the so-called, SR5 is the base.
And what's on top of that?
Then at least the listing that I got was SR5, TRD Sport, TRD Sport Premium.
But wasn't TRD like their off-road trim level, and now it's like the bottom of the off-road trim level?
Well, I view it as like AMG. It's like you had the, for the longest time, it's like you had the hand-built V8s and the hand-built V12s, and then they got into like the 6-cylinder models and the 53 lineup. So, it would be like an enhanced engine and suspension, but it wasn't quite on the level of the more traditional AMG. So I think what they've done is they've realized there's profit and popularity in the TRD name, so they've kind of gone down market with it. So they get people's attention, and people can say, "Oh, well, I have a TRD model," but there are varying degrees of ability.
Kind of like Mustang,
To me, it sounds like it's like you have, let's say, a Pontiac Tempest, and then they start adding things on top of it, like a Le Mans.
Okay.
And then at some point, Tempest just ends up being pushed down, so it's a very base model rather than the model that it was itself, just a model. I didn't articulate that right, but at some point, it gets phased out. And I'm not saying that TRD is going to be phased out eventually, but it had some stature, and now it doesn't have any. And that seems to be something that's pretty typical in the automotive industry.
Well, yeah, I think it's been diluted in a sense that, it's not just like, oh, well, the only one we have is a TRD Pro. That's the top of the line. You have these varying degrees, and, but from a marketing standpoint, it kind of makes sense to me. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Bel Air would have been a better example because it used to be the top of the line, and then they had the Impala, and then they had the Caprice, and at some point, Bel Air's the bottom of the line.
Yeah, this is going to kind of sound very corporate and kind of cheesy, but I think it's an issue of like white space. It's like, let's say they come out with a certain model, and then there are people who are like, oh, well, they're price sensitive, but they want a certain level of features, or they want the badging, or, the sort of identity. And then they're like, oh, well, there's this white space for people that want something. They want
like the Audi S line. Is that what it's called? Like where you get the regular A4, but you get some of the S pieces? Yeah,
stuff like that. Or like,
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. It kind of dilutes the, I don't know, brand value, let's say. Yeah.
And that happened with AMG, at least according to one forum that I frequented several years ago, when they had, I think it was the AMG 43 lineup. Like, there are a lot of people on that forum just up in arms, like, oh, this is not a real AMG, blah, 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 but these automotive companies, like there's always going to be a white space, if there's enough research and if enough research goes into it, enough time goes by, a white space will be revealed and then they'll try to fill it. And it kind of makes sense to use like a recognized name, like with, what was it? Well, in this case, but yeah, like the Mustang Mach-E, people were enraged, like, oh, they're making an EV SUV and they're putting the Mustang name on it. Well, I mean, it makes sense in a way because it's recognized,
right,
and for better or for worse, they got a lot of press from it.
Oh yeah.
That
was probably pretty smart of them to do, to get those EVs in there and under some recognized name like that. Although the enthusiasts for the Mustang may not have appreciated that very much.
It's kind of like Mach-E hater meet the four-door Charger hater.
Sure.
they can agree on one thing. But yeah, and most importantly, not only did they obviously update the style, but one of the, I'd say the most major improvement is they updated the powertrain. So the outgoing model, only option you had, 4-liter V6, 5-speed automatic. I mean, back in 2009, maybe that was, up to date, but you flash forward to 2024, which is the last model year for the outgoing 4Runner. I mean, that is absolutely ancient.
Sure. So
now they've updated it. So 8-speed automatic, no matter the trim level. And then there's a choice of 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engines. So the base level is the
278, I think.
Yeah. So that they bumped up the horsepower compared to the outgoing V6 a little bit there. So you have the what is it? The iForce. So the base 4-cylinder, it's just turbocharged 4-cylinder.
2.4?
Yeah. But then, and that's standard on, certain trim levels, certain lower trim levels. And then at the top of the line, you've got the iForce Max, and that's a hybrid. So it's the same engine, but they integrate an electric motor into the automatic, and then they couple that with a nickel metal hydride battery pack. So output on that is 326 horsepower, 456 pound-feet of torque, which are nice numbers, especially relative to the last model, but those also make this the most powerful engine offered in a 4Runner ever.
Oh.
And they've been at it 40 years, and they sold 3 million of them in that time. Yeah, so that's a huge one right there.
Sure.
Let's see. And, another cool thing about this is they kind of took a page out of Jeep's book, and they have a sway bar disconnect feature up front. So you get a little more flexibility and articulation over rough terrain.
Gotcha. What do you guys think of just the overall look of it?
Do other trim levels look different from the front?
I'm pretty sure they do, because I think that's like a limited or...
That being said, I will tell you that I know we discussed this with the... what's the big one called? Not the Tacoma, but the...
Tundra?
No. Tundra.
Oh, okay.
I was talking with someone a few weeks ago when we had that, and what I like that Toyota has done is, in order to invoke wheel arches rather than create them, like a wide body, they kind of have like this indentation into the body.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's kind of like a nice, clever look.
Yeah, it's subtle, but stands
It's like
out.
a body stamping thing.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's kind of cool. And it looks like this has it, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen it in the flesh, but I'm imagining it's following the same design language in that respect.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely see the family resemblance. I mean, they were inspired by desert off-road racing for these, but you can definitely see, obviously the Tacoma influence, but, it also kind of looks like a baby Sequoia.
This is what I'll say. If that's a premium, whatever the case is, that's not an off-road version, the light blue silver one. The front end is very suburban-like, but I prefer the tougher front end of these other two.
Yeah,
left.
I agree.
And it's also not as ugly as some of the Toyota Probably the pickups that I've seen in recent years where they kind of uglied it up. I don't remember if that was the previous generation Tacoma or the new one looks like that also, where they kind of have like these driving lights deep set into the front fascia by the bumper.
Oh, well, you got me thinking of the last generation 4Runner.
Maybe the last.
Actually,
well,
if you
maybe
scroll
that's
through there, we should have images of the last, a 2022, I believe.
Yes, and
Might be after this. There it is.
Okay. I want to say this one is a slightly different configuration, but yes, this is more of what I was thinking. This has been uglied up. I think I've gotten used to it to a point. Like I'd have no problem owning this, thinking that,
Right.
versus like thinking, oh, this is so horrible looking,
Yeah.
But yeah, I like they did not go as extreme as this.
Yeah, so obviously you got like, these aren't there anymore on the front. I really like what they did with that kind of accent indentation on the side. I feel like, those doors are kind of blank and plain, whereas that gives it a little more character, the newer ones.
To me, it's kind of like a nice dress.
Sure.
In the end, the job of the stylist, if not the clothing designer, is to make someone look good.
Right.
At the risk of getting mad, making some people mad, make them look skinnier.
Sure.
And that's what this does. It's like the rear and the front are flared, and it's pinched in the middle, and that that's the job of the designer to make to give it some kind of proportion.
Totally.
To use a metaphor.
Totally.
yeah, it makes it dynamic.
Clothing.
I like the two-tone with this color selection here with the black flares. I think that looks super cool.
Maybe because it's an ugly color otherwise.
It could be.
Maybe the monochromatic would be a little bit too much.
Yeah, they did come out with a new the color, the Terra color, which is like was
Like
it
the beige.
It's like orangish brown. So they're kind of, I think, getting a little creative with the colors. That didn't look bad. I saw a picture of it yesterday. I don't know if we have any here, but I think that was a big thing, is the new color this year.
I mean, I'm not a truck person. I'm totally bored by SUVs for the most part.
Sure.
I don't know if this would be the solution where it has a little bit of style, for an urban assault vehicle, but it's still a truck, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I haven't warmed up the trucks yet.
Sure.
And I guess we'll, eventually when we're done with this topic, we're going to segue into something, and I could articulate that thought a little bit more.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah. Well, before we move completely away from this, we, of course, brought up this picture earlier. Now, it's going to be a while until we can get our hands on a press version of the new 4Runner. They actually come out, they hit dealerships this fall. But Jordan had some experience with the last generation 4Runner as a 2022 model, I think.
That's correct.
That was the orange one?
And that's this one right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the big thing.
Gorgeous color.
Yeah. No, I actually really like the color. Even driving on the freeway, you'd think that, it'd just stand out so much. We almost had somebody like crash into us, which was surprising, just driving a massive bright orange vehicle. So whatever. But we were pretty hard on it, like especially with the interior. If you go to the interior shot,
The interior was horrible.
well, it's dated.
Yeah, very much
You
so.
got that tiny little screen in the middle. All these just buttons everywhere. I guess to me, looking at this interior, like those big knobs there, I don't know if you guys remember, like in the early 2000s, buying like those big stereos. You know how they have those? They look like jet engines in the speakers almost, but then you have these massive knobs for like the volume and tuning.
It was like a Pontiac practically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what I think of when I look at this. So it was nice to see that they refreshed it a little bit. Go back to the other one. I think that screen is now, a 14-inch?
They have an 8 standard and then an available 14.
Okay, so you can get up to a 14.
Yeah.
But that looks, a bit more modern now. You still got those big knobs there, but hey, at least there's like, LED screens inside of them.
and they've got knobs.
Sure.
It's not like all buttons.
Yeah, totally. And I like those like switches. What do they call those switches there in the middle?
Oh, like
Toggle or-
toggle or
Yeah.
rocker or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I guess toggle would be most correct. Yeah, definitely an update. You got digital gauges. I think the standard gauge display is like 7 inches, but you can get a 12.3 inch layout. And then, of course, the very modern infotainment setup. Here's the thing. A couple of things that bug me about this. They're kind of doing what their Lexus is doing on the new SUVs. They're putting the start button way up here on the left,
I noticed that. Yes.
which
Where should it be?
I'm more used to like down here.
Right. Like where that box is.
Yeah, it just feels more natural to me. And then, even though they have the big screen, it always kind of rubs me the wrong way when it just looks like they tacked on a tablet. Like there's no real integration here,
Right.
It just kind of juts out. But at least, they brought this into the 21st century.
Oh, yeah. I feel like a lot of cars are getting like that, though, where it's like just a big tablet sitting there. And sometimes, you got to adjust your seat so you could see over the thing. If you're like, if it gets in your way. I mean, like I think it was the Tundra, massive screen. It's great. You could do whatever you need on there, but it kind of gets in the way sometimes, I've noticed.
Oh yeah, and that that's the trend is just bigger is better these days. But this is I am really looking forward to this. It's about time, and we'll see. I mean, that was the thing. It's like I drove. What was it? It might have been a 2020 or 2021. It was a while ago, but that generation 4Runner was around a while, and it was great off-road. I tested a TRD off-road premium, but I feel conflicted saying this because I grew up in a Toyota family, and there was one point at which my mom, my dad, and my brother, they all had 4Runners.
Okay.
From 2 different generations. So I have a soft spot for them, but the one that I tested, I just didn't see the overall appeal to it. Because I wasn't crazy about the styling. Off-road, it was great, but on-road, it was, to me, it left a lot to be desired because you had the very dated V6.
Yeah.
It was a big displacement, no power adders. You had a 5-speed automatic. So there was no power. There was no fuel economy. And then, of course, body on frame, it rode roughly. So on the road, it was just, I felt like it was too much of a compromise. So it'll be interesting to see how this next generation model turns out.
Totally. I'm excited. I'm excited to get one of those in.
Oh, absolutely.
Does that come with an engine cover?
Yeah, it looks like Medusa's head, doesn't it?
Like, I usually think I can work out some mechanical things if there's an issue, but like when I open the hood and see this, yeah.
Well, pretty much any 1973 American car looks the same.
Right.
It's all that mission junk.
I don't touch those though. But like, yeah, I mean, I usually like the nice engine covers that they put on these things. So I've been noticing there's less of them, and I'm not sure why. So
yeah, it's a weird thing because you read certain publications and they'll say like, well, especially with like certain performance cars, are like, oh, well, everything's hidden under an engine cover, which, it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, yeah, it can hide, gnarly stuff like that. But then other times it's like, well, it just looks very plasticky and just kind of like an appliance.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, this is refreshing in a way. And I remember, what was it, the 2019 Ranger, they had, there wasn't an engine cover, if I remember correctly. So it's refreshing in a way, but at the same time, it's, like first impression, you look at it, you're like, what is going on there?
right.
Yeah, it's easy to get kind of lost in it. Well, we are waiting to drive that whenever it hits the press fleet. But in the meantime, we do have driving impressions on one of its, let's say, distant cousins. Mm-hmm. So we had the privilege of recently driving the 2024 Lexus TX 350.
Yes, that was an experience. It was it's a nice vehicle, very spacious, luxurious, got all kind of features. I don't know what you guys think of it. You guys drove it around a bit, right?
Well,
Yeah.
the front end looks like Jimmy Durante from that perspective. It's just like the nose just so big.
Schnozzola.
And
It's like a wall.
and I'll tell you something. I drove it to Trader Joe's only and
Sure.
back. And I did not enjoy parking that thing. The nose is too high. I mean, look, this is a truck, and I'm not used to driving
Yeah,
trucks. And to have to like swerve into a spot and not hit the car on one side
Right.
and make sure you have enough room on the other side, I'm not used to that. And it's not that I'm not used to big vehicles. Sure, I had a Honda Accord and a Honda Fit and a Mini Cooper and a Mazda 3 and now a Tiguan. So I've had some vehicles with size and a lot of normal size vehicles, but I also used to drive an old 442 everywhere. So I'm used to size, but not when it's like 4 feet tall.
Right.
Yeah, it's higher off the ground, so you're not as, I guess close to the ground, like your radar's thrown off a little bit.
I do think that the spindle is evolving nicely, though. You know, the front end grille and all the triangulation that Lexus is doing. I think it's working well. I think it's worked well for a little bit. I mean,
Sure.
Some people still don't like it, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was when they first started using it.
Yeah, I think what helps is it makes it more dynamic, but also it can possibly disguise the size of it, is the fact that they're not just doing open mesh. It's not this big gaping maw filled with like black mesh.
Right.
So I think my favorite part of this vehicle was the interior, not so much. I'm not necessarily judging the interior as a whole, but let's say a little more micro things like the temperature for the climate control system.
Yeah.
It had here it looks like lines, but like when I was close up, it just seemed like little, let's say, starbursts of blue and red. I thought it was just like a nice, warm, no pun intended, feature. A little detail that made it interesting. I also liked, at least it may be a configuration issue because I'm not seeing it here in this picture, but they had the speedometer, at least the digital speed readout in the middle of the tachometer, which I thought was perfect.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I imagine this is configurable to some degree, so maybe they just don't have it set up that way.
I'm not a fan of the shifter.
Yeah, a little nub.
Yeah, I like gates still. I like to know what gear I'm in, and I like things to be intuitive. And I hopped into this thing, and it's like I don't know how to get in reverse. I have to figure it out.
It's a little funky.
I was able to figure it out pretty quickly because I'm a car guy, but most people are not like that.
Right. It always kind of, I don't know, it's a little weird when you get into a spot, though, and you just press that little button to put it in park, too.
Yeah.
Not like shifting it in where it's like, gonna stay there, but you just have that little button there. But hey, that's the way things are going.
Yeah.
Many other times.
And maybe they'll get away from it.
Yeah, you never know.
It's like sometimes they realize they can't reinvent the wheel.
Sure.
Yeah, that happened with Jeep several years ago. They had that shifter where you would move it into a different position, like neutral or reverse or whatever, but it would always, like, if I remember correctly, it'd like return to the same spot. So it's very off-putting.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And, I know manufacturers do certain things, like they change things up for, sometimes for the sake of packaging. And that, I mean, maybe that saves a little room compared to a traditional gated shifter, but honestly, how much is it saving? I mean, it's kind of trick and a little, unique in a way, but I don't think the packaging is all that affected by it, and that's the thing too. It's not, I don't find it intuitive. I feel like this is one of those features where they change something, and instead of the machine adapting to you or working with you, you have to learn how it wants things. And it's a small thing, but
true.
It does kind of throw off that immediate intuitive connection.
Sure.
But I will say, on the positive side, I drove this, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, relatively quick spin. And one thing that came through was it definitely feels like a Lexus. I mean, there is that that palpable sort of brand identity to it.
Right.
And it's been a few years since I actually drove a new Lexus, but the few minutes I had in this, I'm like, oh yeah, this feels connected to the other ones.
Except
Sure.
for the engine.
Yeah, and
That was interesting, the engine in that thing.
I didn't notice a thing. We didn't really talk about the engine until afterwards, but I mean, I had no issue. But I guess to the folks in TV land, this, what was it, Turbo 4?
Yeah, 2.4 liter.
Yep.
Which I guess is not really in the class of what you'd expect to find in this type of vehicle. But this is how things are right now. It works, but...
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, it had punch. But the thing is, to me, there's only so far that engineering can go. So, like, you drive like a modern Rolls Royce, right? Very quiet, very smooth, very powerful, but there is no amount of engineering that it currently exists that can hide the weight.
Sure.
Especially like when you come to a stop, or like if you drive a body on frame pickup or a body on frame vehicle, there's always a certain kind of ride quality to it that, all the suspension tuning and everything just cannot, cook out of there. Right. And with this, it being a turbo 4-cylinder, the driving experience was nice, it was quiet, it was smooth, but it's another one of those cases, like 4-cylinders typically have a gruffness to them, a certain kind of coarse sound that, to me, even in a Lexus, just, they couldn't mask. Like, it's still there.
Sure.
But yeah, that was that. You just can't hide that.
Yeah, like I agree with you, Diego. I mean, it definitely like will get you where you need to go, and it'll move without I guess. I don't know, like the engine, when I would accelerate in it, it almost sounded like it was straining a bit, and I can only imagine because it's, pulling this whole thing, but it sounded like it was straining a little bit, but it moved, I would say there was like a turbo delay and all that, but all in all, I was impressed with it. Once I opened that hood before I took it around a bit, I was expecting it to be really kind of laggy a bit. And didn't really experience that too much. So it was well done,
So
this is the same thing overall as the Toyota Sequoia?
No. The Sequoia is, I don't think this is truck based. This is like a crossover.
Okay. Wait. Okay. So I used the wrong name. What's their big SUV that now they have a long wheelbase version called the Grand something?
Oh, the Grand Highlander.
So this is like the Highlander?
I don't know if it shares the same underpinnings, but the same idea, like a 3-row. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like even the 4Runner's a 3-row. I guess what I'm asking is this the same platform?
I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Luke would know.
Yeah, that's a good question. But speaking of 4Runners and off-road vehicles and all that kind of stuff, what I think this is. I'm using the term white space again, but sure. I think this is definitely an instance of that because, several years ago, Subaru came out with the Ascent, and that was their answer to people who wanted to stay in the Subaru family, but they wanted a larger 3-row SUV. And, the outgoing GX, and I'm sure the current one too, that one, if I remember correctly, was available with 3 rows, but that was a very different vehicle. Body on frame, off-roader, heavier V8 powered. Whereas this, it's 3 rows, it's a crossover, different driving experience, different, sort of objective for, sure. The driving experience, different clientele and everything. So I think this was a very important vehicle for them to come out with. Kind of like, what was it? The Cadillac, I want to say SRX, but that's not it. The XT6, that was obviously not as big or, didn't have the same underpinnings as the Escalade, but it's a, crossover with 3 rows. And this fits, I think, fills a white space that Lexus clearly had in their portfolio.
I think that Toyota and Lexus have so many SUVs now that it just seems kind of ridiculous. I can't keep track. And because of the naming convention, that Lexus uses. It makes it even more difficult.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, because
It's like they got Toyota's a Land Cruiser. There's a Lexus version of it.
the LX, yeah.
That's the LX. I mean, I don't know.
Well, and it's weird, too, because you think about, like, you know, so they make it easy in a sense that, like, the SUVs, they have X at the end, but you would think, okay, maybe the flagship would be further in the alphabet. Like TX is pretty far down, but this is slots obviously below in terms of price and prestige, below the LX.
Do you think they spin a wheel, choose the letter?
Well, you know, sometimes they have like there's you know, sometimes it's like an acronym.
Sure, yeah.
Like this is a very dated example, but like the Camaro Type LT was luxury touring, and then like even the Lexus ES when it came out, it was like I think it stood for something like executive sedan or something like that. Now I don't know if there's any sort of, you know, acronym meaning to TX, but you know that would make sense if there was, or yeah, maybe this is just like, oh, we need another letter. T it is.
I wonder if it has something to do with Texas.
Oh, well, you know, I can imagine these probably sell well there,
Sure.
you know, especially like Dallas, Houston area, because it's a high-end vehicle and it's a 3-row SUV, which I think in general, I think in, you know, recent years, there's been an appetite for that, you know?
Right. Yeah, this car was pretty neat. I like the safety features and the driving assist features as well. One thing was a little annoying though with the like the safety features. We'd be driving it around, and a lot of beeping going on, and it was kind of in the background too. So you didn't really. At first, I was like, I just heard all these alerts going off, and I didn't know if it was the car I was driving or something else, because I was just like, what's even going on?
Yeah.
It will tell you to put your head up, sit up, like in the chair and stuff, just like on this little screen there. So that was kind of annoying. Not really sure.
You can always adjust those, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, we're trying to figure out like where all that stuff was, because apparently there's like a camera in there, and it'll, you know, watch you and watch your body and all that, and tell you to like sit up straight and stuff. So it was kind of funny. But I will say the driving, like the lane assist, and the adaptive cruise control, was fantastic on this car compared to others. It was just super smooth, and like, you know, sometimes if you're like, you know, swerving off to or, you know, weaving off to one side in a lane, it'll just overcorrect.
You mean like when you're looking at your phone?
Sure.
Doing your taxes.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, it was almost, you know, say you're at a you know, two-way road, one lane each, and it's going to correct you. You know, sometimes it was just a little abrupt, whereas this was super smooth. It almost like, I felt like it just grabbed those lines and just like locked onto it. And then all the turns and everything was really nice. I'm really getting into this adaptive cruise control. I've never had it on any of my cars. And it's something I kind of just got the courage to test out a little more and experience it a bit. I think it's awesome. I think it's super cool.
So what does that do? It uses the radar so that if you're at a certain speed and the car in front of you slows down, it adjusts accordingly?
Yeah, so you just let it know how many car lengths you want to stay behind it, and you can have your cruise control set for 75 miles an hour, and if the person's going 35, that's what it's going to be until they start like speeding up and everything. And it'll come to a complete stop as well. Great for traffic and all that. You know, I don't ever check out. I always keep my hands on the wheel, and it's just in case, because there's a couple times where you're just like, okay, sometimes when somebody will like take off really quick in front of you, then the car will just, you know, start going, doesn't see that there's brake lights ahead in front of that person, so then it'll, you know, it gets a little funky there. You might get some harsh kind of pullbacks in a way sometimes, but this one stood out as extra smooth for all that stuff. So
Yeah, some systems are a little more intuitive or, you know, human friendly than others, you know, just in terms of like, it seems like, you know, some of them, I guess, you know, when I've used them in the past, it's like, it seems like there's one or two where they keep you really close to the left side. And I'm like, I want to be a little more in the center.
Right.
And, you know, obviously they all kind of tune them differently. You know, but yeah, it sounds like, this one was very well tuned as far as, you know, the human on the other end of it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So if you guys out there are interested in learning more about this vehicle, check out our review on Classic Cars TV YouTube channel.
Yeah, great idea.
Too.
It's up already?
It's going to be up. Thank you. I forgot. Yeah, I think the last one we have now is a Genesis.
The electrified.
Yeah,
G80.
which that was fun too. So, yeah,
That's
check
the
them
first
out.
TV I ever drove. Again,
Yes. Yeah.
Trader Joe's and back. Something like that.
Well, I'm sure you
a lot
fit
of
in
fun.
there.
Yeah. I mean, the parking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I just drove around the block.
Oh, okay.
Kind of commute, though.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of new vehicles, that brings us to our next segment, memes that we found online and memes that we've created as well.
Yes.
So I think I'm up first here. Mine is very fitting for this week's big news. So I thought, given the lifespan of the last 4Runner, I figured this one's going to be around a while. So it says at the top, I've got a picture of the new 4Runner, and at the top it says, like how the 2025 4Runner looks. At the bottom it says, good, because you'll be seeing it for the next 15 years. Which, we'll see.
If it holds true to history, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, it's like, in a way, I mean, 15 years is crazy.
It's a long time.
But I understand, obviously, stretching out a generation because you think about all the capital, all the investment, all the branding, the legwork that goes into developing these things. It's like, yeah, you want to stretch the costs out. You want to pay off the investment.
Yeah.
But time will tell how long exactly this generation lasts. But
Sure.
the last one set the mark at 15 years, so we'll see.
Yeah. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and then next up, we've got.
This is one of mine.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
The law. It's the law. I don't know. My mind is weird. I'll see signs like that, and that's exactly what I think of.
So you came up with that?
I found it, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was kind of something I was looking for. I did not create this.
Okay, I haven't seen that one yet.
I like it. I mean, you just want to be a responsible citizen, you know? I'm a simple man. I see the sign, I obey the sign.
Right, exactly. See, like that guy's a law-abiding citizen right now.
Sure is. Oh, let's see. Okay. Is this one of yours?
This is one that I came up with.
Oh, okay.
So you have a BMW driver. You can see from the steering wheel it's a Beamer.
Yep.
Those motorcycles never use their turn signals. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Oh, I see what you.
Now I'm just playing around with the idea of the Beamer drivers who never, do anything properly.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, not using the turn signals. Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a BMW driver thing. I think it's just kind of the kind of car that attracts jerks, and maybe BMWs are drivers' cars, and some people fancy themselves as Dan Gurney. Sometimes, who knows? But the thing is that I ride my motorcycle. I use the turn signals all the time.
Sure.
I am in a deficit when it comes to safety. Riding a motorcycle, and no, I don't see motorcycle riders using their turn signals often. So I kind of was just like playing around with the idea that, well, it's not just motorcycle drivers, it's Beamer drivers.
Sure. Yeah.
I just thought it was because their blinker fluid was low, but
Yeah.
guess not.
That's what we should have, AutoHunter blinker fluid to give out,
That's
So
we're gonna make a mint.
I don't know. You realize that was Alanis Morissette.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's I'm of that generation.
So this one is Corvette, because every AARP member wants to feel young again. I don't know. I just, Corvettes and that more mature audience, right?
I like how you phrased that. Very delicate.
You didn't want to say Boomer?
No, that's all right.
So yeah. The I think the official uniform for those is jorts and Nike Monarchs.
Yeah, with those like tall tube sacks with the stripes, I think, right?
Oh yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
I most likely will be an old person with a Corvette, though, so
Well, you're a young person with a Corvette, so you're on your way.
Exactly.
All right, let's see what we got up next here. Oh, okay. All right.
That's it.
That was great.
Okay.
Sweet. Yeah, so now it's time for our main topic. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was leaving my neighborhood, and, I've got a ho-hum car, just, 9 to 5 commuter car. And I was driving by these kids waiting in the neighborhood at their bus stop. And I thought, this car is nothing to look at, but I used to have a 2008 Mustang Bullitt. And I thought, well, maybe when I was driving that car, there were some kids in the neighborhood who saw it for the first time and weren't into cars, but were just taken by the looks and the sound of it. And maybe that car ignited a spark of passion in automobiles in one of the kids in the neighborhood. Maybe, I'll never know. But that got me thinking, okay, well, what are some other cars out there that could have that effect on kids that have never liked cars before, but upon seeing that are just, taken by it? Like they decide then and there, one of these days I'm going to own one of those cars. So I talked to the guys about the topic, and, we all came up with our own lists. And we each picked 3 decades and a car from each of those decades that could have that effect. And I think, this is kind of timeless. It could take place, it could get that spark ignited in that time period or even now, So let's see who we got up first. All right. I think I know who did this one. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So this is obviously a Corvette C4. So this was kind of to talk about the 80s and 90s era. Just the body styling difference between like the C3 and the C4. I mean, extremely different. This looks like a spaceship. And I would say that's probably what they were going for back in the 80s as well. I mean, you look at any of the advertising, like some of the earlier TV commercials, that's they kind of try to make it look like you're going somewhere in space or something. You got like the dark and the smoke places. I've watched a lot of Corvette stuff, so just those commercials and stuff. That's kind of what I was going for here. I mean, you got I tend to like pop-up headlights, obviously, so that's on there. America's sports car too. I mean, I think this, if someone were to see it, like a kid back in the 80s or 90s, I think that would inspire them a bit. If you're looking back in the 80s, 90s when these came out, I think the list price for some of these was, don't quote me on this, but just roughly somewhere around like $30,000. And if you were to take a look at like the inflation rate for where we're at today, that's like a $75,000 car, So, back then I think it was a big deal, and pretty sweet. Jordan, I obviously liked it.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Well, that was something I wanted to ask you. Can you share that story you were telling me about when you were a kid? Because that really ties us all together. I mean, it's such totally. a real world example.
Yeah. So basically, I grew up in, I grew up in Florida, but we moved out to Arizona back in 1998 or so. So a couple of years after we were here, lived in Cave Creek. So if any of you guys are from Arizona, you might be familiar with that area, but right at Cave Creek Road and the Carefree Highway. I believe it was my dad, my brother, and I were just taking the dog out for a walk one night, and we just looked across the street, big old house over there, but there's just all kinds of stuff going on. There was like cameras going around, people carrying cameras, a bunch of media trucks, people everywhere with headsets and everything. So we're like, geez, what's going on over here? So we go over there, just snooping around. Everybody's super cool. They're like, oh, you guys like neighbors and all? We're like, yeah, just checking it out. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're filming a movie here. I forget what movie it is. I would like to find that at some point. That might be interesting just because. But
yeah.
So they were shooting a movie there. Kind of walked around, checked things out, went outside, and then we were just chatting with people out there. And then like everyone's like starts chatting like, oh, so and so the director, like, here he's coming here. So I like look over, and there's this little, it may have been like a RX-7 or something, maybe like a 2002 or so. Just comes rolling up, and these two guys get out of the car, and then they turn it off, and the headlights go down. I don't know, maybe I was just easily amused as a kid, but I saw those headlights and I was like, geez, Like one day, like I will have a car that has headlights like that. Like I just thought that was the coolest thing. I was probably like 10 or 12, I'm guessing. But then fast forward, this is actually a photo of my car that I own right now. I didn't really realize till probably like 4 or 5 months after I'd purchased this car that I did it. I got the car, the white car with pop-up headlights, and that was important to me, you know. So this is kind of one of those funny things, you know, full circle, just thinking back on everything, and you know, why exactly I ended up with this. So obviously there's some other influences that led me to this car as well. But that was kind of a funny thing to notice after the fact.
Oh yeah, man, that is literally living the dream.
Yeah. I mean, I was influenced by pop-up headlights, and yeah, that drove me to make it happen in my life. So,
well, excellent choice, man. I mean,
exactly.
Not only in white, but I don't know if y'all can see it from here. It's got the red leather interior.
Yes.
Just such a great contrast, that pop of color inside.
I agree. I was driving this over the weekend, and just every time it just feels like I've just got into this thing the first time. It's insane.
That's saying a lot, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I think what's the next picture? I think it's maybe the earlier.
Oh yeah.
Like, I would say probably 86, 87 maybe.
Yeah, the first series of them.
Yeah, but still that same kind of spaceship look, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and then you had the digital gauges, so yeah.
Oh yeah,
like sci-fi.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I forgot about the gauge cluster up there. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, just I knew obviously that you're a Corvette owner, and if you weren't doing the show today, I absolutely would have picked the C4 Vet because
yes.
I've been in a ton of cars, loved cars my whole life, seen a ton of them,
Yeah.
And even to this day, like just a few weeks ago, I was on the highway, I saw a C4 Vet, like a second series,
Sure.
and it was like, I was a kid again. I looked at it, I was like, oh, I blurted out some 4-letter words just because that design is just so eye-catching.
Sure. Yeah. I agree.
All right, so let's see, what do we got next? Oh, okay.
All right. Actually, let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Okay. I'm a little confused.
So I'm guessing these are yours, right?
No, sorry. These are mine. So go back to the one before. Sorry. Okay. So what I had done was I have this one, which is the 67 Eleanor.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to fast forward to go to the original one. That one.
Oh, okay.
So that's the original Eleanor from Gone in 60 Seconds. I chose this one because obviously the Eleanor inspired somebody to make the 2020 Nicolas Cage Eleanor something as well. I don't know the whole story behind how that got to, the previous image of the 67 GT500, but I guess I figured that since that was in a movie and all that, that would impact probably a lot of people. So, and just to see the transition from this to the 67 was interesting. I don't know how that happened or came together, but yeah, I think Diego, you probably like this one better, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not really into either.
Oh, sure.
I mean, getting a Boss 351 Mustang or a Cobra Jet Mustang is pretty cool to me.
Yeah.
I just am not into these.
Sure. Totally.
And I'm not into the newer Eleanor, so I would rather have a 67 Mustang.
Sure. I gotcha. Yeah, I like all the on the other 67 one. I just liked the I don't know, just all the accents and stuff. It just looked elaborate, I guess.
Oh, on the remake model.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot going on. I don't know. Like in my mind, it doesn't look like somebody had it's not like somebody had an Amazon gift card and just went and bought like everything possible to stick on your car. I feel like it's still tasteful. But there's a lot going on.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of people like these things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this was huge back in the early 2000s. I mean, you had all the, sort of, I guess you could say replicas of replicas, like
Yeah.
this was the sort of muscle car version, I think, in terms of popularity of Fast and the Furious.
Oh, sure.
Obviously, they had like muscle cars in those, but you know, that same kind of idea, because I think the main thrust of at least the original Fast and the Furious was like the Asian cars.
Sure.
But this had that effect as far as, you know, domestics.
Totally.
And then you've got, I think the one after this is one of yours too, right?
Yeah, the 300 SL. So that was more for the gull-wing doors.
Oh yeah.
Which I believe these were the first car with gull-wing doors.
I think so.
Yeah, I think Bugatti claimed to have the design, but I don't think they actually released the car. So this technically would be the first one. But these things are legendary, you know?
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, even now, but yeah, especially back in the 50s, you know, if you're a kid on a, you know, sidewalk and you see somebody get out of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that seals the deal right there. It has to.
Totally.
Yeah, I can see why you picked that. I mean, you know, just great lines anyway. And then, yeah, the performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got a little trunk back there, a literal trunk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just, wow, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I did a little research. I think what I could find, and it could be wrong, so don't quote me, is the most expensive alloy body 300 SL sold in 2022 for $6.8 million.
I can believe
Insane.
it. Yeah.
I know. I think one of these sold at Barrett Jackson for
3 something.
yes, a nice number as well.
This past year.
Yeah. That was one of the cars we covered when we did the show there.
Yeah.
And I think it was a color change too.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, that sounds about right. So I think, Diego, your cars
Good
are,
to see you guys too.
yeah, I think, there you go.
Okay, so this isn't the first one that I chose, so I want to tell you my thinking pattern. So since after I chose my first one, which we will get to in a moment, I wanted to think of something that was a little bit more American, a little bit more accessible to a parts catalog. I didn't want to choose the Corvette, and I just thought choosing the Camaro was just like, I mean, they're already kind of popular. I wanted to think of something that would make an impact on kids or someone who's not into cars. Let's say for the Camaro, I think newer Camaros would do that.
Sure.
So this is what popped up in my radar. Impala SS from the early to mid 90s. It's pretty big for, in today's terms, but, it's kind of a stealthy looking package that I think would make a mark, let's say make an imprint on somebody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like Darth Vader's car.
Especially the V8.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and, I'll say this. My brother has never really been a car guy, but I think since the early 2000s, this has always been one of his dream cars.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he was, early 2000s? He was in his 20s then, so wasn't a young kid, but I mean, it made that kind of mark on a guy who's just not even into cars.
Sure. My first car was a 2002 Impala LS.
Okay.
So it's just kind of funny.
Totally not interested.
Yeah, there's nothing special about it. It was, it was a car. So
I get
but
that.
This is interesting. V8, 260 horsepower, huh?
Oh, yeah.
One.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
I think the Firebird had 275
Okay.
and weighed less, but in the end, having a big performance car was kind of like not a thing. Mm-hmm. So, I think the 90s are kind of good for Detroit because they were doing fun stuff, something that doesn't seem to be happening right now so much, at least consistently. I mean, you think of Chrysler, they had the Ram and the Viper and the Prowler and a bunch of other stuff. And even like the regular passenger cars are kind of interesting, even if we don't see them on the street anymore. Let's say like a Dodge Intrepid.
Oh, yeah.
And, for GM, they're doing this. They're doing the SSR, of course, the Camaro and Firebird and the Firehawk. There was a lot of fun things going on.
Sure. And was this sold as a performance car?
Yeah.
Wow. You'd think they'd make it look a little more sporty or something.
I mean, how? If you saw what a regular Caprice would look like, it's just like they did as
sure
good as they could. I'd say.
I mean, it's sleek.
And you know, they're popular with people.
Sure.
You know, people work on them, you know, soup them up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know, they're popular like that.
Nice. Right on.
So the second one, which is actually probably my first, is a Subaru WRX. This is the first car I went in sideways. My neighbor had one.
Nice.
And he took me for a little spin, no pun intended. And I don't know, I was just thinking of something that was a little bit more modern that would capture someone's imagination, and I think these are pretty plentiful and a good chance of somebody seeing what's going on with them, whether it's stock or modified.
Sure.
So I think this car can be inspirational. I didn't know which one to choose, so I thought I'd choose the first, at least the ones we got in the States. You know,
the bug eye.
yeah, you know, they have their uglier and better looking phases. I think these weren't very pleasant to look at, but they got kind of worse over time, and then maybe a little bit better. They're still a little stodgy, but you know, they're pretty cool nonetheless.
So what's under the hood on something like this?
It's like a turbo Boxer 4 back then, maybe what, 2 liter, 2.5 liter, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, you know,
Very similar to what they have today for the most part.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
so real world example of this, back when I was in high school, my buddy Jake, his cousin Manuel, his family was pretty well off. So in high school, Manuel got, I think it was, I guess, 01, 02 WRX. So again, you know, not a little kid, but of a younger generation. Apparently he was so taken by these, he ended up getting one.
Wow.
You know, and that's what it put it on the map to me, you know, because
Sure.
I think my only exposure to Subaru at that point was when I was in elementary school. Our principal had like a Subaru, like GL wagon or whatever the model was. He had a station wagon.
Okay.
And then flash forward, I was like, oh, Subaru, like these are like cool, because I knew it was turbo, all-wheel drive, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really stood out at that time.
I got to ask, did your friend Manuel, did he get a manual?
Gosh, I don't even know if those were available with an automatic back then. Maybe they were, but
all right.
I guess he got a manual. It would make sense.
Had to.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I used to work with a guy named Manuel, and he said manual only drives a manual.
Love
I have to admit, this is the first time I've heard the name Manuel be pronounced Manuel. Were his parents little gringo?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I am, but that explains the
But
pronunciation.
you know him because it's not Manuel if you know him.
Yeah.
So I just never heard it pronounced that way.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a word that we can use in English, or a name rather, you know, like Jesus, you know, it's like, I guess you can say Jesus.
Right.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So car number 3, 61 through 63 Ford Thunderbird. I think this is a car that's relatively common that someone's going to see in the street and be like, what is this?
I can see that happening, definitely. Yeah, I mean, just the taillights alone.
Exactly. I definitely tried to find something from the rear. I was looking for something in the dark so you could see like the red trails, and I couldn't find that. This is the closest I found that kind of, that was something that would leave an impression.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too. It's like you see, I mean, really any age, but you see an older car. I mean, even like a 90s car that's in good shape, but especially something like this, since we're so many decades removed, and since so many have been, left in fields or barns or wrecked or are hermetically sealed, you see something like this and it's instantly striking. I mean, aside from the design, just the fact that it's these days a relative rarity. I mean, that alone will make it stand out. But this just happens to have, a cool design too. All right, let's see here. Oh. Okay, so I was thinking about the whole idea of, like what could a kid see and just be instantly, interested in cars. And I wanted to vary things up. So they're not all the same, but I mean, this is a pretty easy go-to, the Jaguar E-Type. Over the years, they had different layouts for the lighting and everything. I prefer this one. Yeah. I think it's just a, cleaner, sleeker design. But I can imagine a kid now, but especially back in the 60s. Like, let's say they see a well-dressed couple getting out of one of these cars. I mean, you get these gorgeous lines, that British racing green looks great on really any car, but especially a Jag.
Too,
Yeah, the wire wheels with the knockoffs. They see a well-dressed couple getting out of a car that looks like this. I mean, that right there could change the entire direction of their life. Like, I want to make enough money to have a car like that. I want to, live that lifestyle. I mean, it is just, it's the poster car for, glamorous driving and lifestyle.
Okay, nice.
I mean, I'm almost 40 and I see this car and I'm like, yeah, it's very inspiring.
Sure.
And then of course, I'll say this. I know my picks so far have not been, they are not what you would call deep cuts. I mean, these are go-tos,
or maybe attainable.
Yeah, well, the prices on these have just gone so high, but I mean,
this ship has sailed.
What do you think that Jaguar is? What the price point on that?
I was looking.
I think they've gone down. They got kind of pricey now. You could get one for under, you get a 4-figure, maybe 80 grand for that green one. Maybe. I don't know. I'm far from an expert.
I was looking at some of the dealer prices, and I would imagine these are the ones I'm about to tell you about have been like meticulously restored, but I mean they're in like the low 6 figures. Some of them like 280, 300. I mean that's the asking price.
Jeez.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there were some 4-figure cars at Barrett Jackson at Scottsdale this year.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But a lot of it depends on, they have different variations and evolutions. Let's say what's the series 1? What is it, like 61 to 67?
Gosh, I don't know.
And 68's when they upgraded the let's say the bumpers and where they moved the parking lights down below the the heavier looking one that just isn't as graceful. These early ones, some are worth more than others. And I don't really know what's the distinction. Maybe some of them with the headlight shields are worth more. I don't know.
I gotcha.
I prefer with the headlight shields, like you.
Yeah, it makes it sleek. That you don't have this sort of cavity sticking out.
Of course, every other car had the cavity. It seems 240Z. Ferrari Dino, Italia. Whoever makes that, Intermeccanica, whatever it's called.
Yeah, on the 240 it kind of works, but yeah, I like the kind of closed off in the E-Type. But so this was the Countach is next on my list. Like I said, not a deep cut, but I mean there's just no way of getting around it. For the 1980s, there had to be kids that would see this, especially like you see one in white with the big wing on the back. There's no way that doesn't stick out in a kid's mind. I mean, red is a great color. It looks great on any sports car, even the Countaches, but there's something about the white, like it's kind of unexpected. And then, just the styling, the strakes. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember my brother's birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know if that's even open anymore, but
they are. Yeah,
they're still around. Okay, all right. Well, good. I don't feel that old.
One by Chandler Mall.
Oh, okay. All right. I remember, like getting a little Hot Wheels of that. I mean, it's
totally
timeless.
Looks like a Hot Wheels, so you can drive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and these. Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, if there was somebody back in the day that was inspired to get one, these have gone up a lot. I mean, I was looking at some of the dealer prices on these, and they're like mid 6 figures, like 5, 6.
I'll tell you what, though, as I've gotten older, I think the earlier ones are much nicer than the later ones. This is, I think, an anniversary car, and this one is tacky to me. When I was a kid, this was much more interesting to me.
This is not an anniversary car, but I know what you mean because
The scoops and the rockers look like an anniversary car.
yeah, but those, I think they had a different treatment up here.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Now, on one hand, I think the wing, at least from, when I grew up, I think the wing makes it, obviously it kind of clutters the looks a little bit, but I think it's part of the iconography of this car. But I agree, the early Countaches where they were just simple wedges, I think those are the most striking, the most brutal, the most, signature look for those, I think. And then I thought, okay, well, I got to change it up. I didn't want to do the C4, although it was very tempting. And I didn't want to do another wedge, and I didn't want to do another, uber expensive vehicle. So I thought, okay, well, what else is there? And I went with the, late 90s, early 2000s Acura Integra Type R. Now, I don't know if seeing this car would have that kind of generation starting effect on a kid now, but I can imagine back then, there's two things at play here. Obviously bright yellow, it's got the big wing on the back, but then, if the kid became aware that, like these are relatively attainable.
Yeah.
Or if it was a kid, like slightly older, like 13, maybe that would have made them think like, well, I want to save up enough money to get one of these because it's not a super expensive exotic.
Totally.
It's an Acura. So I can see back then the looks and especially this color having that effect, but also it was somewhat within reach.
Sure.
Or even, somebody like late 20s college age, this was one of those cars that they could make a reality in a relatively short amount of time.
Oh, sure. I'm curious to see where these younger kids go with this kind of stuff these days, because I feel like some of them could be so like desensitized, just with having media so close and I don't know, just the way movies are or something. Kids don't seem to be like that impressed with some of like the older things and things that we think were cool back in our day. Like I think it was around the time I bought my vet. I was talking to my niece and somebody like, "Oh, did you see the picture of Jordan's car?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I showed it to her and she's like, she kind of looks at it and was like, "Huh, okay." I was like, oh, it's brutal. Okay, like, yeah, if you're expecting a Corvette, maybe if you were her age, you were thinking like a brand new C8, something that looks like, more exotic like that. Whereas, sure, I'll give it to you. C4 is boring compared to that, like, if that's what you're expecting. So, I kind of see this something like this. Like, it might not be the most like exciting looking thing, but I'm sure it performs well and has some good stuff behind it. And I think it's cool too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as a former Integra owner, I didn't have one of these. I had the LS sedan. But, yeah, I mean, this definitely... I definitely have a curiosity in these. I mean, I'd love to have one of these. I mean, even now,
Sure.
But, yeah, it seems like, every now and then you see a story about, like, current, driving age kids, and it's like, well, they're not driving cars, or they're not interested in them, or, they don't know how to drive stick, and that's kind of a chicken or the egg thing. Like, well, are they making fewer manual cars because less people know or care to drive it, or do fewer people know how to drive it because they aren't making as many? But I think it's a take rate. I think it's influenced by the market,
Sure.
And that's sad, but the great thing about Acura is you can get a manual high performance Integra still. It took them several years to come out with it,
right?
To relaunch the Integra. But for those who are interested, maybe
there you go.
Us of older generations, that is available.
Totally.
All right. So I think we're through our picks now.
That was a cool segment.
So now, as we do every week on Drive the Bid, we're going to end the show by going over our favorite cars that are available on AutoHunter.com this week. So I think we're going to start off with yours, right, Jordan?
Yeah, this one's mine. This was my pick. So this one is a 2010 Chevrolet Camaro 2SS RS Pete Rose Hit King Edition 6-speed. So this one kind of jumped out at me. I mean, obviously baseball season has started. So any of you baseball fans, maybe you want to pick this up and take it to the ballpark or something.
Or the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Oh, too soon.
Ouch.
Too soon.
Hey, at least he got a car, right?
It's true. Automotive Hall of Fame.
Right, exactly. So this auction actually ends. You can kind of scroll through these photos, but auction ends on Friday, April 12th, 2024 on AutoHunter.com. So this really was made in recognition of Major Leaguer Pete Rose and his record-setting career of his hits totaling 4,256. So pretty cool. One of 27 produced.
Good grief.
So yeah, might want to keep your eye on this one. It's actually only been driven 5,400 miles as well. And that, if you do the math, that's 385 a year.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Which is nothing. Yeah, clean Carfax. Had a brand new rear wiring harness installed in the back.
Cool.
I believe the seller had a rat kind of get in there, so it's all fresh and brand new though. It's got a LS3 6.2 liter V8.
Nice.
It was rated at 426 horsepower, 420 pound-feet of torque when new. It's got the Tremec 6-speed manual transmission. Also a 245 watt Boston Acoustics 9-speaker audio system.
Cool.
Audio is always pretty important to me, so
Oh, yeah.
see that. Also jet black heated leather bucket seats up front. You got the Hit King branded headrests. Also a little emblem in the center console place card somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
So you can't see it too well there, but also fender badges. And also comes with an engine cover that's signed by Pete Rose and framed with photos of the car with Pete Rose. So check out that listing. There's more information on there. Just a reminder that ends April 12th, so act fast. I can't say what the reserve on this is, but if you are interested in this car, you should throw a bid on there. You should definitely do that. So I'd like to see this thing sell. It's a sweet car. What do you guys think?
Yeah, this is one of those instances, like the longer I work here, the more I realize like how many different,
Sure.
cars are out there that I had no idea existed.
Yeah.
And this is certainly one of them.
Yeah, I had no clue that this even existed too until we are going through and picking out something. So I thought it was pretty sweet.
Yeah, what do you think, Diego?
I'm a fan of regional specials, and as Philadelphia is my home city,
Yeah.
I know who Pete Rose is, although this is, let's say, inspired by his time in Cincinnati. I mean, it's cool. I'd own it. I just wouldn't want to be driving up the mileage. I mean, I would rather drive a car, and
Yeah.
I don't think with 5,000 miles, I don't think this is something you want to drive all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, it's been, 14 years, and other people who had it had the same idea.
Yeah, but if I had the money to just hold this up, to mothball it, I would definitely consider it. This is something I've never heard of before, and it checks a lot of the boxes that I would want for a modern car, if not a modern collectible.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the Pete Rose connection. It's a red Camaro with a V8 and a 6-speed, too.
Oh.
On top of that, that's a good combination.
Geez. Yeah.
Well, I think it's only appropriate, speaking of money, that we place bets on what price this actually goes for, right?
Yeah.
What is it now? Right now,
I believe now it's at 22.
I'm gonna say 25.
Let me just make sure. Let me make sure that
Or let's pretend we're at the price is right. 25,100.
Can we somehow work Plinko into this? But yeah, that's a good pick there, Jordan.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a new one on me. I've seen a million Camaros, but yeah, that never saw that one. Oh,
I'll go 28.5 for my bet on that, where it's going to end.
Oh, okay, nice.
5.
So this is mine. It doesn't look like much right now, and honestly, I'm not a fan of 65 Plymouths. But this This one is special. And also, I will add that even though I don't like 65 Plymouths, I think they look very good with Kragers. And I don't even like Kragers either. So the reason why this one is special is because it has the 426 Street Wedge, which was 365 horsepower. It was the most powerful regular production engine that Plymouth had that year. They had several race Hemi cars, but it's a race car. And so this is the top of the street cars for 1965. They only made 800 satellite hardtops in 1965. As you can see, this one needs a little work, but it's very drivable. I mean, it could be your daily driver and just improve it over time. But it's this is from the time when maybe it could be faster than a GTO of the era, but it did not have the image of the GTO. Chrysler still hadn't figured out that they needed a car with image to compete better with the GTO.
Well, it's got that. The cool thing about it is it's got that kind of sleeper quality to it. Yeah, because it's not as racy looking as a GTO. And, a car in this condition, it's like the beauty of it is if you're driving it around, it's like you don't have to worry about that first ding.
Right.
It's not a velvet prison in that way.
Totally. That's a cool pick. I like it.
So this car was originally monotone red. It's not a two-tone car, and it's definitely not black and gold.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Sort of a Hearst homage, I guess.
Looks like it almost had flames at one point on the hood.
Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Notice that.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting.
Huh. Yeah, you got that shadow there.
So you can see the Commando 426 decal on the air cleaner.
Yeah.
This is a strong car.
Awesome.
Just needs some TLC, as they say.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
And the winning bid, of course.
So this one expires for you folks in TV land. This one expires. The auction ends on Monday, which I believe is the 15th of April.
Oh, good. Yeah, good
Cool.
timing. Yeah, you got plenty of time to put a bid in on this.
Got the whole weekend to do it.
There you go. No excuses. All right, so I did pick a Corvette in a way. Just wasn't a C4. This is obviously a C5.
Yep.
Not just any C5. This is a 50th anniversary C5, so 2003 convertible. And being an anniversary model, a special edition car, it's got a special paint color. This is 50th anniversary red. That's over a shale leather interior. And then it's got the top to match. I don't know. Yeah, we don't have a picture of that, but it's got a shale top that was replaced in 2016.
Cool.
So that's good. And, like your Vet, this is relatively low miles.
Sure.
So this is, I think, 58,000 miles on it.
Oh, yeah.
So
What year is this again?
2003.
Okay.
2003. So yeah, relatively low miles. Of course, you've got the LS1 under the hood, and that is connected to a 6-speed manual. Nice classic combination for a modern Vet. A stick, and some other goodies on this. You got the Bose audio system, and then magnetic selective ride control, so you can change up the suspension firmness. This one, not as much time as Diego's pick. This one actually ends on Friday, February 12th, so should be the day after this episode drops on YouTube. So yeah, if you're seeing this right now, put your bid in on this Corvette. So, all right, fellas. Well, we did it. We did it.
Fun, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show, man. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're just now tuning in, it's a little late, but you can always go back and watch. We discussed the news items, so the new 2025 Toyota 4Runner.
Yep.
We shared some car-related memes. Hopefully you can relate to them, or especially find them funny. Fingers crossed. And then we went into our main topic. So we discussed, cars that could launch the next generation of enthusiasts. There's plenty of them out there. It just takes the right timing and the right car. And then, of course, Speaking of enthusiast vehicles, as we always do, we covered our favorite picks on AutoHunter.com. So, fellas, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on, Jordan. And, for those of you out there, would like to thank you for watching the Drive the Bid podcast brought to you by AutoHunter.com. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast, whether you're watching or listening. We will be back next week with more news and more AutoHunter picks. In the meantime, please go ahead and check out ClassicCars.com online and AutoHunter.com for our auction vehicles. And be sure to stay tuned. We always have new episodes each week coming to the AutoHunter Cinema YouTube page. And for our vehicle reviews, be sure to check out Classic Cars TV on YouTube. We hope to see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.